weight differences between small doors? Small, like an old 318 versus the 5.7 or 6.4?
I think it's lighter. I think it's
I don't know what it is, but it is lighter.
I think it's at least 50 pounds lighter. It's
Remember,
not.
you got aluminum heads.
Yeah.
Plastic intake. Yeah.
Oh yeah, in a 5.7 you've got plastic intake. In the 6.1 you've got an aluminum intake, but you've got aluminum heads. You've got all these weight savings. You've got 50 years worth of technology changes. The walls are thinner. It's a significant difference. I mean, even if you offset and you put an overdrive transmission behind it, which weighs an extra 25 or 50 pounds, you're still ahead.
Yeah, you got to remember when the old engines were made. They weren't purpose built. I mean, they put extra thick castings in them and all that kind of stuff. These engines are purpose built, so they're made to reduce weight. Everybody's mileage conscious on the new ones, so that's part of the reason they're lighter. Yeah, on mine I use the 727, so the stock mount worked fine. And the motor mounts, I use TTI. Now you can go TTI, or I think Schumacher also makes
Yeah,
a
mine
mount
are
for 'em.
Schumacher.
Yours are Schumacher?
I got one of each. I got.
Side or?
Yeah.
What have you each car?
Again, I try to do a little bit and try different stuff and go back and forth, but I had TTI mounts on the Cuda. I changed over to Schumacher's. I have TTI mounts on the Coronet. Honestly, on the Cuda, I wish I could go back to the TTIs. It's my own personal. I like the way that when you're putting a lot of horsepower to them, they tend to loosen up and move. So I understand they're in a biscuit mount, but I had TTI mounts on my car with a Magnum mount from Mancini, the through bolted biscuit mount for I don't know how many years, 10 years or more, and never had an issue with them. So they hold up, they stay together.
Yeah, early B body, I was considering a swap. What would anyone take the question as far as like a model 6.1, 6.4 with an overdrive, either 6-speed or 8-speed? Anybody have experience in early B body and what direction would you go? 6-speed, 8-speed? Any ideas?
Early B body would be
67. What are you talking about? 62 to 65?
Or yeah,
Mine was 67. So.
well, it's similar, but
it's ish.
And I just went with the automatic for simplicity. I just left the 727 in.
so you went with the old 3-speed.
Yep. I wanted the simplest old school hot rod engine swap and nothing else.
So the 8-speed would require transmission tunnel surgery.
Yeah, I've heard that. I know they're quite a bit bigger.
The RFE and the 8-speed are about the same size, and they do require that you open up the transmission case. A lot of the early swaps, guys were just taking truck drive lines and throwing them into their their B bodies, and they were having to open up that transmission. Yeah, they were having to split it, kind of part it down the middle, and the nag should actually be a little easier, but the problem is with the nag is you need the shifter. So there's a couple of challenges on doing that. I know guys were also doing the A518s, were from the Magnum motors, basically.
From the 90s.
Yeah, basically. I mean, that would be what my truck would have come with. Yeah, would have come with that. They're similar. Again, you got to make some dings and dents, but it would fit. If you do that, I know there's a guy with a couple of them that just run manual valve bodies, like you're running. But if you run anything with 4-barrel flange intake, you could still run a kickdown cable. You could do the throttle box like he's doing, which would give you your throttle body response.
Yeah.
But then you could run a kickdown cable off of that, and you could still run it.
So you run new and old school.
You could.
More or
I mean,
less. Same
personally, if I were to start totally fresh, I would love to put an 8-speed in that, and I probably will at some point in my truck.
Yeah.
But the tuning's just not there yet. I have to wait for it. Right now, if you were going to buy one, I've seen them in scrapyards for like $400. But there's no tuning, and the other side is it's like $1,000 for a valve body.
For what?
For the valve body. It's like $60 a quart for fluid.
Okay.
So just account for expensive stuff. So I mean, that's something. 8-speed is fantastic. It's great. I mean, I would love to do it. I'd love to be able to get 25, 30 miles per gallon out of my truck with that, and be able to handle 600-700 horsepower. But you got to know what you're getting into on that. I think the nag is a great option. Again, the shifter's pretty tight. I think Sound German is working on a smaller, more compact shifter.
Is that a 5-speed?
That's a 5-speed. It's a 5-speed with a lockup converter, and it locks up in second or third depending on how the tuning is. And we're making decent power off of them. I have 2 transmission controllers for my Charger. I have one that locks up in second, one that locks up in third. And if I'm driving around town, I like the one that locks up in second better than I like the one in third, just because
It's not hunting.
I also have a 3600 stall converter in it, so I kind of like to be able to.
Yeah.
I had a 4800 stalled in it, which was great on the track, but it was a little bit of an angry thing in the street.
Thank you. Probably no converter options for
Right now, no. I think the only option is the Demon one for the 8-speed, the Grand Cherokee, and stock truck, I think. I mean, you're getting pricey anyway, no matter what. You're the parts guy.
Yeah. But I also wasn't prepped for any of this, so I looked it up.
You had 20 minutes ago.
Thanks.
It's serious. It was 20 minutes ago. We were doing it. He came over. He came over, wanted to talk about something else. He goes, "Hey, come to a seminar." Oh, okay.
None of us are professionals with this.
Yeah.
I heard that the 8-speed will go all the way, they'll drop from 8 all the way down to second if you're cruising and you slam it.
If you really want to, yeah.
I mean, they're pretty rowdy.
The 8-speed can do let's go. Let's face it, a 727 can only do so many downshifts because there's only 3 gears. So a nag can do a downshift. It'll only do a sequential, so it'll go from 5th to 4th, 4th to 3rd, 3rd to 2nd. It has to go sequentially because that's the way the transmission is designed. It was originally designed as a 4-speed by Mercedes, and then they realized that they could take 5 gears out of it. The 8-speed can do whatever you want. It can literally go from 8th to 3rd if you want. It can probably do 8th to 2nd, but that's going to be pretty violent. I can't recall off the top of my head what the ratio is for 2nd gear, but going from a 0.67 on overdrive to, I'm going to say probably a 3-to-1 is
somewhere 3-to-1. Probably.
somewhere around the 3-to-1. So 2nd gear in an 8-speed is actually deeper than 1st gear in a nag or in a 727. So it's a fantastic transmission.
Are you pushing the button to do that, or how you doing?
No, like basically you just put your foot on the floor and it decides
What's down?
the kick down. Yeah, it will kick down as it goes. Okay, we're driving this fast, and if you have everything tuned correctly, it will basically decide it's going. Okay, we're going this fast, and the engine's requesting this much. If you tune it and it knows I've got 400 horsepower, it will choose to transmit what gear it needs, and next thing you know, you're sitting just shy of red line and you're flying.
People are pretty used to it. There's just that tuning.
Not yet. Like I said, I've heard the rumblings that there's a Mopar kit. I've heard for the last year or so. The 8-speed guy, I know he bought a beat up old pickup truck. I actually think he put a Hemi in a F-150 or something for fun, and he's got an 8-speed running. Yeah.
Question, you're talking, what the old transmissions on heavies.
Yeah.
Is the whole pattern the same as like the small wheel?
Same small block bell housing. You need a different flywheel or flex plate,
Yeah.
and in a stick car.
Yeah, as long as the whole pattern's the same, everything else is.
Yeah, no problem. Anybody else?
So what's the story on the Hemi kit? Camshaft gone or
So, well, I guess I see this the most at work. So the Hemi taking is like we have had some lifter failures, which will wipe out a cam lobe. And then we've had, the 2003 to 2008 cars, you get the Hemi tick. It was either valve geometry wasn't quite perfect, or the lifter bleeds down a little bit. The MDS lifters are really, really sensitive. They don't have as much crush for lash as a regular lifter. They have half of the amount of lift. So they get really, really sensitive, and over time, when they start getting weaker and weaker, they don't have that 100,000th crush. They only have 50. So if it's off, or they get weaker, it becomes more and more prominent really quickly. Now Hemis also, they don't feed oil up the push rod like, a small block would. They actually feed it down the push rod. Yeah, so they actually come up through the pedestal, through the rocker shaft, down through the rocker, down through the push rod, and oil the... So when you start getting a little bit of dirt and debris in there, it actually starts bleeding out in places and you get a tick. So if you have, for example, if you have like an aftermarket camshaft in it or something and your push rods are just a tiny bit off, you lose that oil pressure, and that 50 pounds of oil pressure suddenly becomes 20, 25 at that lifter. It starts collapsing and ticking. So it's something that you do have to be a little more specific. You check the push rod length, and we should be able to figure that out by now. But if you're putting in a 6.1 camshaft into a 5.7, you need 6.1 push rods because the camshaft base circle is different. So just stuff to remember. Well.
I knew the Hellefant question would come up. I have not talked about shipping. I know Mopar got overwhelmed by the orders. In other words, they're building them now. They were anticipating 100 for the year, and they figured that would kind of go gradually, and it went in 48 hours. So it kind of surprised everybody. That I don't know for sure. I know they're building them, but I don't know if they've made them out into release for retail yet. So I can find out. I just don't know.
The durability testing was actually in the drag cars.
That's what I thought. That I was just told that they had durability testing for build and ship dates.
They were like Leah Pritchett was actually running them in the drag cars. So they were actually durability testing that block. I mean, it handles, I think they were on 1,500 horsepower on those cars. So they're handling it as modified. It's not the Hellefant setup, but it was 1,500 horsepower for the drag cars. No, that's an aluminum block. That's a custom one-off, non-production block.
You said we could find out for it?
Yeah, I can call and find out. If you want to come by the booth sometime this weekend.
Anybody else? No? Any more questions?
Budget-friendly swap. What would you do?
But you know what? My brother loves going through junkyards, going through the U-pull yards, and there's a lot of older Rams in there. So you're starting to see them. They are higher mileage, so the first thing I would do is I would pluck one of those motors. You can probably get it for $300. From a $350 from a U-pull yard, that kind of thing. Pluck it, put new lifters in it, and a 6.1 cam, and run it. Grab a PCM from it. I would avoid an 03 or an 04 PCM, just because they don't tune well. Mine's running an 05 Ram PCM. It runs its own challenges. What are you putting it in?
I'm
Just something. Okay. So if you're gonna do that, I would be plucking from an 05 Ram, and I would put new valve springs, new cam, and new lifters, and just have at it. Just have fun. You can stick your new heads on it. You can, Eagle heads are fantastic. They're probably the best budget head out there. We're both running them. Mine are ported. They're still stock valve. They've got PSI 1511 springs on them, shimmed correctly. I'm running almost 600 thousandths valve lift, and they're supporting 600 horsepower. It's in a 4,200 pound charger, and it runs 11 2s, like all day. So, and then drives back from the track. I change the tires. I drive to the track. I change the tires. I run all day.
And I watch you do it.
Yeah. I mean, we go to the track. Joe and I have been racing together for a while in the modern street Hemi shootout. And if you haven't been to one, great. There's a whole bunch of swap cars, Hemi swap cars, and some of them are, there's some really interesting ones in there. There's 8-second darts running late model Hemis. Joe's got his in there. You're running 1094 in your CUDA. I could have run the truck, but I like running the Charger instead. My truck's my slow one, but
What would you consider the horsepower limit or torque limit of Nag 1?
In stock form?
Stock.
In stock form, they claim, yeah, I mean, it's 580 Newton meters is the factory. The Nag 1 is called the 580, which is 580 Newton meters of torque. Now, technically, the 6.4 that was in front of it was more than that. So they claim they made some improvements. It's really the same transmission. If you do a little bit of tweaking, you put a shift kit in it, whatever, I'd say 500 wheel horsepower is you're good, but you're at the bleeding edge. Mine, I built up, I'm still running a Nag inline. It's got a shift kit. I built it, it got a little bit more creative, but nothing that's super crazy. Took the K1 clutch pack went from 6 clutches to 9 clutches, you know, just improving stuff. And it handles 600 horsepower, 600 foot-pounds. There's guys still running 1,500 horsepower with a Nag. So they get picky at that point. And there are limitations, like mine does not like burnouts. It'll do the burnout, but if it reaches red line too quickly, it freaks out. So there's things to realize in that. I've learned that don't do a burnout at wide open throttle. If I do it at half throttle, it's perfectly fine. So, which is enough. Yes?
One of you, I think, brought in the prop there, manifold. Is there anything else you want to tell us about?
Tell us about your product, Joe.
All right. I have basically the only dual plane intake manifold for Gen 3 Hemi. Now, one of the biggest things that, if you want to go old school, everybody has their own taste. Everybody has their own thing. If you wanted to go old school, these motors eat up runner length. They love it. Basically, as long as I basically equate it to, remember the old letter series? You got letter series car with big long ram intake manifolds. Basically, that was the whole speed of sound, supercharging, technique with pressure waves and stuff. And that's basically, they continued that application into today. That's where the barrel intakes came from on the Magnum series engines. That's where the barrel intake comes from on a 6.1. That's why it looks the way it does, is to get the actual physical runner length that it wants. Well, one of the biggest problems that you have if you try to package it like an old school application, it's very hard to get the runner length because old school center feed, like carb looking type intake manifold. So one of the issues that a lot of people are running into, and I'll leave brands out, all right, but I basically designed this after somebody was having more than one person having more than one issue with another brand intake manifold. And I knew what the problem was by looking at it. It's wrong in general. So this has the longest available runner you can package into that package. The runner is 7.25 inches long. It will, over that intake manifold, only at the peak, because of the runner length, it'll drop a couple of foot-pounds, 5-7 pounds, depending on what your engine is capable of doing. But it will extend the RPM band up, and the torque curve is real nice and flat and even when it runs across. So I have the same exact intake manifold on that car. I race what I make. That's the way I look at it. If I make it, I'm gonna put it together. I try to keep it simple. I can tell you everything that I have in it. If you want to run a Nag 1 or you want to run a 545, you need a lot of times, with the exception of the Sound German stuff, if you want to run a factory PCM and a factory trans controller to run a Nag 1, you need to run drive-by-wire. So one of the things I came up with on this is it's set up to be able to run a drive-by-wire throttle body in an upright application and still mount an air cleaner to it, like a regular 14-inch air cleaner. So I have a 2005 Dodge Magnum with that intake on it. It's my everyday car, my everyday R&D car. Actually, again, no problems with electronics. I have a 2005 Chrysler 300 with one on it. Again, set up the exact same way. I wanted to make sure that, again, if I sold it and I told you it was going to work, it's going to work. This way there's no issues. You pick up on throttle response. I've actually picked up on the Magnum 0.1 a tenth basically in 60 foot time. Even though you lose that little bit of torque, the intake reacts a lot quicker than a stock, like a 6.1 intake, or I have a friend of mine with an SRT8 Magnum, and my 60 foot is quicker. Now, I got a quicker 60 foot, but he tears me up on a long end because he's got a lot more power. But like I said, when I designed them, I try to be as conscious as I can about making things work. Those will run a set of stock 6.1 fuel rails. So if you want to run a set of stock 6.1 rails, you can do that. If you want to run aftermarket rails, you can do that too. So like I said, I try to make sure I test everything before it goes out. And if 9 out of 10 times, if I tell you it's going to work, I've done it already. So at least that's the way I keep it. But that intake manifold will, a stock 6.1 intake, if memory serves me, will flow 335 CFM in stock form. This will, with a port match only, so basically just the opening within 3 inches of the end, if you just open it up, because it's just the way that the intake is machined inside, that'll flow 345. So it'll actually flow a little bit better than a stock 6.1 intake. So in the way of RPM band, it's got a standard like a 2,500 or so to 6,500 RPM band. I push it with the CUDA, not so much with the Coronet. It's pretty much as straight as it can be. The only modification to that engine, it's a stock early 5.7 with a 6.1 cam in it, and it's I think I made about 335 horsepower to the rear wheels, 340 foot-pounds of torque. That's off of the Coronet. In fact, I don't have the dyno sheet on me, but I have it on my phone if you want to see it. So nice, even, flat torque band. So, but like I said, I'm in 2 of Larry Shepard's books. He actually had a book that he came out with for rebuilding them that he just came out with, and he had come out with one before that it was he liked it enough that he put it in his book and recommended it.